Good afternoon. This is Panda Consulting's ArcGIS workshops, and I'm Frank Conkling, and we have a different type of workshop this month, in that we're going to step back from the technical and really start talking about the more personal. We're going to talk about what it means to be a leader in GIS, what it means to really be conscious about your career development and professional development. And we've been very, very lucky, and Panda's very, very lucky in that we have with us Scott Weisman. We've known Scott for about 15 years now, and we've enjoyed working with him. And I really love sitting and talking with Scott. He is the program coordinator for the TLCGIS, and I'm going to ask him to explain what that is. And it's a really nice program in Tallahassee. If you ever get a chance, Scott will give you a tour. I like offering his components on there. But so Scott, let's get right into this. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you, Frank. Pleasure to be here. My name is Scott Weisman. As Frank mentioned, I'm the program coordinator and for the Tallahassee-Leon County GIS. So we're situated in Tallahassee, one city, one county. And it's what we refer to as an interlocal program. It's made up of the city of Tallahassee, the Leon County government, and the Leon County property appraiser. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. I started my interest in GIS in college, took whatever GIS classes they had back then, which were minimal, and found myself navigating toward, I studied sociology at first, and then lent itself to urban and regional planning. So I took a class, the sociology of cities, and that fascinated me. And then again, that lent itself to urban and regional planning, and took on many classes in the urban and regional planning program at Florida State University here in Tallahassee. And that lent itself to GIS. As many of you probably know, GIS is a pretty popular tool with urban planners. So I was competing against people that were getting their masters in urban planning. So I had a choice. Do I go down that GIS route? It's early on. I can get in on the ground floor. Surely GIS, as we know, has been around since the 70s from a technology standpoint, but from a programmatic standpoint and actual usage in local governments, it really didn't show up until the mid 90s. Perhaps a little earlier for some. So I decided to go the route of GIS. I really enjoyed it. And my first part of my career was scrubbing maps, not literally, but they would do some quality control on a deliverable of parcel data. And then from there, I worked for the property appraiser's office. So for 4 years, I mapped parcels in the manual method, reading legals and using a Koh-i-Noor ink pen and Mylar. So some people know about that. And all while the digital layer was being developed. So did that in parallel. So we had to do both at the same time until the digital data was ready. 1990 was the year that the GIS program got started on paper. So in 1990, and it still baffles me today that the city of Tallahassee and the Leon County government had the forethought to think that a GIS program was a good idea and we should do it, and we should do it together. So in paper, they put together a consortium between the property appraiser, the County of Leon and the City of Tallahassee, and put together a joint program where we agreed to jointly manage and provide systems, data, and resources, software, licensing, a singular location for data to be stored, managed, and edited and shared back out. I talk to other counties and cities that have data sharing agreements, and they work pretty good. But they'll say, well, I get a copy of the parcels once a month. And I'm like, wow, how do you survive that way? We're spoiled because the property appraiser is maintaining their parcel data right in that joint geodatabase and
So
share it
Scott,
back out. Yes.
I'm going to give you a chance to breathe a little bit. All right. I'm going to interrupt you and ask questions. So I know that it's the county and the property appraiser and the city. For those of you that are attending that are not Floridians, recognize that Tallahassee is also the state capital. So do you get much involvement with any state agencies, or is it primarily just your county and city agencies?
No, we have a nice close relationship with our state friends, and that surround itself to talking about the Seven Hills Regional User Group for GIS. So that's a nonprofit GIS group that was started about 20 years ago, and it brings all those agencies together, and we do presentations, conferences, workshops, and camaraderie with the other GIS professionals. So we get to work a little bit with the state folks. I mean, their focus is different, of course, statewide, but they, because we've been around, we've been doing this for a long time. We kind of joined forces on some things. We have a good working relationship.
Good. So how many employees does TLCGIS have?
Our central office, we've got, I think, 12 now. We've had 2 recent retirements, and one of them's coming back, thank goodness. And the other one just departed us after 32 years. And Greg started with us in the programs in the very infancy of the program. So he basically was around, from the beginning of time for us. So we'll be losing a lot of institutional knowledge. So yeah, 12 or so people, and then we have interns that will come through. We get really quality interns from the FSU Master's program, and one of them actually just turned out to fill a position here, which we don't have open very often. So, that was a nice transition. We got to learn about that individual and how they operate, as an intern, and whether or not that's a good fit for us. And she edged out some others that actually had more years of experience.
Interesting. So tell me about your involvement with Florida State University, because I know you're an adjunct there, right?
Yeah, so I mentioned I went to school there, got my undergrad, and then went back for a master's degree in GIS. They started that program, I think, in 2006 or 2005, I think. And it was local. I thought, well, that'll be great. I can go back and see what else I can learn and, prepare me for the next level, perhaps one day. And so did that. And then about a year or so after I graduated, 2007, they said, hey, how would you like to teach a class? I would love to do that. So yeah, fast forward, I guess, what feels like, I think it's 10 years now. So maybe off on my math, but yeah, I've been doing that for a while. And it's funny, I just came back from the Esri Southeast Regional Conference.
Any teaching experience before?
No. And then when they said, would you like to teach and you can, make up your own class? I said, what do you mean make up my own class? I said, well, you can, you decide what material you want to cover. So for me, that was exciting because I didn't want to teach out of a book. I already got my master's. I saw what that was like. And I said, let's do a different approach. I want to teach the students what skills and things they're going to need to be successful in a career in GIS. I think it's one of the more successful or popular classes, not because of me. Trust me, anyone, there's 100 people that could teach that class. It's the content. And I also, my approach to the class is very different than than the professors that teach a lot of theory at the university. And so
Right.
mine is more practical.
So again, I'm curious because I actually taught at the local college here for about 12 years, and um, there's always anxiety the first time you teach a class, the first time you get in front of them, because it is slightly different than making a presentation at a conference or anything, because it's a more long term. It's a much deeper involvement in them. Did you experience any such anxiety on there?
Oh, for sure. Even though I've been doing this for a while, um, I would say the last 10 years of my career, has been more administrative and less technical. So it actually forced me to, stay involved and stay up on the latest stuff. And I also have other folks that I bring in to speak, guest speakers. Ned Cake on this, who's works with me, who's presented here and on your channel, Frank. I bring Ned in, um, and some other folks to talk about different topics, and they appreciate that. I always appreciated that. I took a local government class and as an undergrad, and I remember they brought in a guest speaker every other week, and I never forget that. I thought that was more valuable than reading out of a textbook.
Sure, sure. I'm going to put a pin in here for a minute and just mention anybody who's attending right now. If you have any questions or comments or anything you want to ask Scott, please go ahead and put it over in the chat window. Chris is actually moderating it. So please just go ahead and do that. We don't want this to just be a two-way conversation. We want this to be involved with everybody that's in attendance. And by the way, Ned is a great friend of this workshop, and we really appreciate his willingness to share his knowledge and everything that he's learned. And thank you, Ned, on there. He teaches all of us. So let's talk about this, because teaching someone else is always very, very fulfilling, and it's really it helps you to grow also. Because what I found was that if you want to go and teach something to somebody, you better know that subject. You better know that subject forward and backwards, and especially if it's something as complex such as GIS. Would you recommend other people teach, or at least strive to teach other people?
Yeah, if not teach, mentor. There's a saying, and I don't know who said it, but they said you learn by teaching. If you break that down, yes, talking about the preparation and to be ready to teach, and I learned stuff from the students every year. I'm not afraid to admit I don't know something or I made a mistake. It's all a learning process. So as long as they get the right answer and they learn it, then
Right.
then I'm doing the right thing.
I know you've also been involved in ERISA and ERISA Leadership Academy. Can you talk to us about that a little bit? And what did you get from there?
Oh yeah. So professional development is so important, not just from a technical, career. I think, people will find themselves, as I did, taking a technical path, which I miss. I still do it, but not to the extent. And knowing that you need to learn some of the soft skills and how to manage people, how to and manage a program. And so ERISA Leadership Academy was excellent for that. I was really impressed with how much you can learn in 5 days. Also, there's another program called CPM, Certified Public Manager. Many states have it, and it's hosted by a university or organization. Here in Florida, it's fortunate it's FSU, Florida State, hosts it, and that is an 8-week program, and very extensive training on anyone from budgets to working with people, and it's a very, very fulfilling, and it's taught me a lot of things that I've tried to put in place here at work. And a couple of things that I think about is our environment, working environment. There's only so much you can do. I'm not knocking down walls. I don't have a budget to turn our office here into a Google Studio or anything. But the little things you can do, and making sure that people have the things they need to be successful. So we're talking about having good computers, having the right software, and my approach, my management approach, is really not micromanaging, a little bit, maybe a little bit hands off, but involved, letting people trust people that they will do a good job, and they will do a good job. And when they don't, that's when you make some adjustments, and people want to know when they can do better. And so giving people flexibility, letting them take care of their families, and those are the little important things that go a long way.
So I recently was at a conference over on the west coast of Florida, and one of the really hot topics, it was like no matter what session you went to, was about hiring people and retaining people. It really goes down to how do you go through and work with your employees to make sure that they have not just professional development, but also career development. What are you doing? And I know you've got long-term employees, as we do here at Panda. How do you hire somebody though? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say it's a really, really important investment and time. Take the time up front to get the right person. It will make a world of difference down the road. Don't rush to try to fill a position. Take the time to find the right ones. We do not hire a lot because, to the point you made, Frank, people stay. People stay a long time. I'm a good example of that. I got 29 years in the state retirement system, but I'm still young, and I'm going to do this for a good bit longer.
So let me, and I apologize to you,
Yeah,
but let me
no,
interrupt, because you said something that I think is really, really important, and maybe other people can pull from this also. And I know we try to do this here at Panda. You don't hire necessarily for the technical skills.
mhm.
You hire for the culture. You make sure that culturally they fit into the organization. And then you look at the skills. Is that correct?
Oh gosh, yes. You can find people with lots of skills, technical skills, um, but do they have a personality? Is it a good fit for your organization? We pride ourselves, we tease ourselves here that we're a wonky bunch. I think everyone would probably say that about their own office space. But yeah, we need to make sure that people want to be here, and they'll be a good fit for the future, that they want to work for local government. Um, there's a lot of competition out there. The private sector is, especially now with money coming out of the federal government, private sector is doing pretty good, and I'm happy for that. But it also, makes it more competitive, and we can only offer what we can offer. I don't own the place. I don't set the salaries and things like that, but there are other things that we can offer, and that's a pathway, growth pathway. Frank, you alluded to that. Um, some years back, we built into our positions, um, a runway, if you will, a growth path. So we have some positions that will start with like a 1, 2, and a 3. So specialist 1, 2, 3, analyst 1, 2, 3, and we worked it out with human resources to create um, a pathway based on their performance to be able to promote people without going through the budget process. That's hugely important.
One of
Budget,
the other
yeah.
things, what if, especially with this, because the question is, how do you know when someone is moving up that scale? Do you rely upon certification and certificates and any of that on there, or how do you evaluate that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I have my GISP, and several here in the office have the GISP. We value those. We appreciate that. We keep them current. Um, but we don't really have, I have seen where other organizations are looking for that, or they're looking for an Esri certification or another certification. And those certifications are useful. I think they're valuable. They tell you something about that individual's training and level of experience. But for us, it's more of, knowing what their skills, how they grow. We're pretty close with our teammates here, so we know the growth pattern that they're going on. We know um, how they're developing, and there's a matrix that we use, certain skills of attainment. So as you advance, they're going to take on more progressively challenging tasks. They'll be performing them with less and less overhead, any assistance, things like that, and um, just watching them grow and see the things that they can do autonomously. Those are sort of things we look for. And again, there is a little bit of a recipe that we, follow with documentation that shows they've reached a certain attainment.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've had a discussion here with several people from Esri and GIS-CI, which is the GISP certification institution, and it brings me back to a discussion I had when I was in college, and that I was sort of a late bloomer. I sort of was in the profession, then I went back to college, and they had, my professors were we knew each other on a professional level, so it wasn't like I was a student just coming out of high school or anything. And I was asking them about, so help me to understand what qualifies to be able to get a degree if someone already knows all this. And their response was, and this is echoed in Esri and GIS-CI, in that it's not necessarily the knowledge, but whether or not that person is willing to jump through the hoops and put forth the effort that's required. And most of these do take a lot of effort to go and get them. Like you, we don't put as much credence into that, and we evaluate it ourselves whether or not the employees and the personnel are actually making the effort to better themselves. But I always found it interesting because I've talked to people about it, and they said, well, what about certificates and such? And it's like I try to tell them it's not as important as you putting forth the effort to learn. You have to learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, and that's what we're looking for. We look for their desire to advance their knowledge. One of the things that I really push here is for folks to take on R&D. That's how one of the ways that we grow as a program and not
Right.
staying stagnant. We have our share of work coming into us on a daily basis. Everybody has that. They got the things they got to do. But I really more than encourage. I really push people to do R&D, and a lot of them do it naturally on their own time. So here's an example, an area of artificial intelligence, machine learning. One of my teammates, Jason Cox, um, came to me and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I've signed up to take a class on neural networks." It's like, oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
How much is it? I'm happy to pay for it. And he's, no, I already did it on my own time. I'm doing it from home. So I said, okay, well, anytime you let me know and we can support that. And and then short time after that, he came back with some ideas on how to use AI with some of the Esri models and other models as well. So I shortly purchased a workstation, AMD Threadripper with dual GPUs, NVIDIA GPUs, and he came back with an award-winning project where we're extracting features for service roads and alleys. We've already done that. It's baked into our base map, and we've done some other things with AI. And so that's a really a good example. I've got other folks here that are doing stuff on their own as well. It's not even part of their core job, but they want to learn more about certain Esri technology. So they go crazy with it, and I'm so happy for that.
Yeah,
And then there are other,
I agree. And I think that as as a leader, and not necessarily just a manager, but as a leader, we have to encourage people to go and let's put it this way, let's reverse that. Instead of encouraging somebody else, we have to go and remove the barriers that are there for them, whether it's paying for the education or whether it's giving them some free time so that they don't always have to work on their projects all the time, but give them a chance to expand their mind. And I think that's critical for us as leaders to help them in professional and career development. You need to be able to explore things that are not just what's in front of you. You have to figure out what's going on and have an interest in it. I agree. Definitely. Definitely.
and I learned something from my predecessor years ago, Pat Curtis. She was one of the first GIS coordinators, and she said, my job is to isolate you guys from a lot of the administrative stuff, the politics and what have you. But we work in government, so you can only go so far with that. But that is still something that I try to follow. I try to take care of, um, a lot of the administrative things, talking about budget, licensing, uh, things like that, and so the team can focus on their work and do
Yeah.
what they love to do, and they do it so well.
Great. So looking through, because we have talked a couple of days, management styles, and I'm going to change that because I noted yesterday when we were talking management style, I think it's actually leadership styles. And you mentioned something, you mentioned a flywheel style. And can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. I didn't invent that idea, but I like it. Once you start to build, it's like the snowball. We'll think about the snowball, especially for our friends up in the snow country. You're rolling that snowball and it's growing and growing and growing. And that flywheel effect also with that centrifugal force building. And that's kind of what we try to do here in our program is to keep building value in what we do, the quality of what we do. And I think our deep desire, what we do, comes out in everything. And I've gotten that feedback from people like, oh, wow, you guys really love what you do. And I said, we sure do. We hope it shows. But yeah, think of it as centrifugal force, growing, growing, and, building your program, building value in what you provide to your customers is that's how I think of it. I think of the bundle of things that we do and how can we top it every time? How can we even go even better?
Yeah.
Um, mhm.
So we've got somebody in the chat window just said, is it possible for you to go and share any of the AI results? And just to let you know, we're going to talk about AI at the end here. But yeah, so there's a lot of interest in AI, and maybe we can get your person to go and come and give us a workshop on what they did with that AI thing. I know
Yeah,
it's you won an award for it, so yeah, please. So like I said, we're going to talk more about AI at the end of this.
yeah,
Um, but you mentioned something also and a lot of us are going to the user conference, and I know there is an executive summit at the user conference every year. I also know that I think this year it's free for those of us that are registered for the user conference. Have you ever been to that executive summit?
I have. I've gone, I think twice, and I enjoy it. I think because it's an opportunity to, they interact with other program managers, and you've got, the manager of two, you got the manager of 40. It really varies so much, and it's also a good idea to kind of, as we do in our conferences, kind of gauge what other people are doing, and
Yeah.
are we keeping up? Are we, we have come back with ideas that we can put in place too, or it validates a lot of times. It's a good feeling. It validates, your progression and your place in in the field. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm still doing that. Oh, we're beyond that. Um,
And I think the one point that's important is that even if one considers themselves technical and you're in a technical position, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be thinking about professional development and overall career development. Because if you don't plan, you never know where you're going to go, right? You want to start planning for where do you want to end up? What skills do you want to learn? What's interesting you? And I think that's important for every single person out there that's involved in GIS to really begin to understand there's more to it than just the hardware and the software.
yeah, it's true. And I'll never forget. Um, Very, very early on, I was looking for work and ended up talking to the then GIS coordinator, the first one. And we were talking, and he says, well, at some point you're going to have to decide if you want to take a technical route or a management route. And here I was, fresh out of college, going, what is this guy talking about? I'm not managing anyone or anything. I'm trying to get a job here, buddy. Definitely technical. And yeah, but never forgotten that. And I always share that because um, it could be you never
Yeah.
know.
And even if it isn't you, even if you're the one that moves up into management, there's still a way to bring value to the organization by expanding the skills that you have. And you and I had during our discussion yesterday, we had a discussion um, about changing employees' mindsets from the technical into, I don't want to call it management, but organizational, and that every single person can be a leader. And leadership really just goes and changes the way you think. And it's not just about thinking about the job or the project that's in front of you at that time, but how does it impact the organization? How does it impact the employees? So if you've got a project that you're working on and you know this inside and out, you intuitively understand whether there's a better way to go and do it, whether there's some other way that you can do that can result in a better product. And if you don't share that, if you don't go and take the initiative to go and explore, you're actually doing yourself a disservice and you're doing the organization a disservice. And I think we need to encourage him. And like you said, I know you do that also. So we have a question here. Do you ever assign a task to a staff member that he doesn't yet know how to do? Do you push them? I find that taking classes without a goal soon loses direction, whereas researching and learning things in order to accomplish a task is much more effective.
Yes, yes, and yes. One of the we're talking going back to our hiring and things we ask and look for. Um, how good are you at researching? That's not a given. And we ask them, okay, one of the questions on the interview questions is, okay, you're given a task. You don't yet, just your question, really, essentially, you don't yet how to do that. What is your approach? And we see what they say. Um, Well, I go and ask the guy next to me, or no, I go on. I use this site, that site. I go to Esri's site. I go to Google. You know, they look up different places to find it. That kind of how they respond um, is something we look for. And yes, absolutely give people tasks. Now we don't leave them hanging and say that this is due in an hour. That's not really helpful. But then we say come back with what you found out. And then we help them fill in the blanks and show them other places where they can get information, and then maybe pair them up with someone who's done that before. But it's all part of that learning experience. So, and it grows them. And with every, opportunity they have to go and find stuff out for themselves, they're growing.
Yeah. And that's such an
You're pushing
important
them.
point.
Yeah.
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 And thanks for that question. That's just such an important point. And it comes back to that whole concept of, do you hire for skills or do you hire for culture? And that culture doesn't just mean that you fit into the group, but that culture means you're someone that recognizes they have to keep learning things. You have to keep pushing yourself, especially in GIS, because nothing stays still. It always moves forward. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we do the workshops. We try to help everybody else explore and do things that they're not comfortable with doing, to show them there's more out there. There's more for you to learn, more for you to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I want
And
to go back to something you said before about leadership. I think everyone can be a leader. It doesn't matter if you're that entry level individual, or definition of a leader isn't the CEO, isn't the manager. I got 12 people here, and all of them are leaders in their own way. Frank and I
bingo.
were talking about this, and well, if somebody said to me, a very young person, I said, "What do you mean?" Well, how can I be a leader? Well, here's one way to do it. Why don't you pull together a group of people? You have maybe a group, or you can be the leader, right, of a working group. Maybe there's a project or a side project or a research project or something that you want to learn more about. You can lead that group by inviting them to sit down and talk with you, and look things up together. That's a small way of getting started with being a leader. It doesn't mean you're in charge of anything. It just means that um, you're starting the process of bringing people and ideas together.
Yeah. Yeah. And while you have to have core training, it also, a lot of it comes down to personality. Um, so I'm actually going to ask Chris to talk a little bit. Chris, are you there?
I am.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, Chris actually went to work for Apple. And Apple, from my experience in talking to Chris, um, Apple has a really good program to go and bring employees on and help them to understand a lot of these core qualities that we as leaders are trying to instill in them. So Chris, can you sort of explain just a little bit what Apple did and with their program without
Sure.
disclosing anything? And I know you're not under NDA, but
Yeah, when I was with the company from the start, as Frank mentioned, they always had a focus on self-improvement. So even at the most basic entry level in the company, they would give employees the opportunity for personal development, to learn new skills, to go out and do research within the resources that were provided to us within the company. And if you wanted to, if you had the drive to grow, like Scott's been talking about, you could learn as much as you were capable of learning, and they would provide you time dedicated to this research and learning new skills and bettering oneself. I myself actually went through a 6-month leadership program within the company before I left that allowed me to be an assistant lead in one of their retail stores and learn how, like you said, Scott, to manage a team, navigate all these different dynamics within the store. And so this culture where they taught you not to be afraid to ask questions. And if you don't know something, there's always a way to learn how to do it. One of the phrases we used to talk about was, "I don't know, let's find out." This way of like not alienating yourself as someone who doesn't know how to do something, but that's kind of saying like, I don't know this piece of information, but let's discover it as a group, and they just kind of empowered all their individual employees. Like I said, if they wanted to be better at something, or if they wanted to grow in a specific area of the business, they empowered us to do so. And that's something that, Panda Consulting and Frank does as well. Like, he has cultivated this culture of, I don't know, let's find out. And I think, like you're talking about, Scott, that's hugely important when it comes to any type of organization, because not everyone is comfortable asking questions or not knowing something. But if you've provided a culture where it's okay to grow, like you've been talking about, I think those organizations are more successful than the ones that don't cultivate that type of culture.
Yeah, and at carve out, I ask folks to carve out something that they like to work on. Hopefully everything they do they enjoy. Okay, but let's be honest, there's certain aspects of our everyone's job that maybe seem somewhat mundane at times, or repetitive, but those are things we have to do. But then I say, okay, find something that's interesting to you that may not be part of your core here, and have some fun with it. And you know what? It turns into something usually.
Yep.
We've got a guy here, Marcus Curtis, who has built an entire website around history of Tallahassee, history of the region here in North Florida. Started out as replacing one single historical sites map and turned it into an entire website with over a dozen themes. He's now rubbing shoulders with the local historians. He's doing presentations with archaeologists and other historians and museums. I mean, it's grown so much. So that was something that's fun that he enjoyed. He had a background in architecture. We have other people here just fascinated by history, and we sometimes will take a few minutes to, hey, let's talk about what you found out on your research, and help them with collecting some information.
Yeah, I think there's also a concept, and Chris knows this because he hears me say this constantly, that we have to go and recognize that we have a comfort zone and that we're always challenged. We need to slightly step outside that comfort zone, so that one of the things we try to do here is that if you learn something, you teach somebody else that thing. So it's not just, oh, I learned it, that's my special thing, I'm not going to let anybody else know it because that's my advantage. Well, that's how I keep a job here. No. That's how you lose a job here, is if you try to go and keep everything to yourself. Instead, you're actually helping to go and grow the organization by sharing your knowledge, sharing your insights. And I think that's critical. And we know there are people that are uncomfortable. So you just have to find a way to slightly get them walking and stepping outside that comfort zone, so that maybe it's nothing more than having a brown bag lunch in which that person gives a little 5-minute presentation. But it's those skills, those sharing skills, those interpersonal skills that we as leaders have to work on to help grow them and get them so that they're comfortable with that. And that's a challenge, right? It's definitely a challenge.
It made me think of something that we do here is we purchase the user conference recordings. I know Esri puts them online.
Yep.
I like the way they package them. That, and for the dev conference. So these are what, 45-minute, hour long
55-minute,
technical sessions. And everybody here has access to them on the server. We sometimes do a lunch and learn where we pull a topic and sit around the table and watch the video, pause it, ask questions, talk about it. Maybe it's not something we'll pursue, but maybe it turns into, hey, maybe we can do a little pilot project on that, and gets everyone's juices flowing.
And by the way, we do that also. We've done that for almost a dozen years now, since they started. Just bring them back here. So even if they can't go to the user conference, they can at
Mhm.
least get that content and take it in slowly. And you're right, it's still part of this professional development. You're constantly trying to go and develop these people and move them up. And I remember working at previous job before I formed Panda Consulting, and one of my mentors told me, he said, Frank, if you never let anybody go and do the things that you do, you're going to die at this job because you're never going to leave. You have
Mhm.
to train your replacement. You have to get somebody who can do what you're doing. And it's important. You have to go and mentor others. You have to go and help them to grow. I just got one of the things that you do, and you mentioned this early on, was SHRUG. SHRUG, I think, is great because it's the employees that are putting the conference on, and they're giving presentations, and they're volunteering, and they're helping to grow that organization. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I know you're current president or past president of SHRUG.
Yeah. Yes, both. I was the past president and a current president again. I've stayed very, very involved in SHRUG. I love it. It's like I can't leave. But we do have a lot of wonderful volunteers now, building that bench back up. I think during COVID we lost a few people, not literally, but they no longer were volunteering, and so we rebuilt that up. But yeah, it's been such a wonderful opportunity. Um, we pull together. We have, SHRUG is regional, so we bring people in from all over the Southeast. We've even had some international presenters one year.
Yeah. So
And
just sort of
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you again. SHRUG, Seven Hills Regional User Group, right? In Tallahassee, that's SHRUG. In
yeah,
Tallahassee,
yeah,
every GIS day, right?
yeah. That we try to do it around that week. That's how it kind of started. And we have on a good year, we have a little over 300 people come. We're going to have a nice convention center here, part of the university, and have, maybe 40, 50 presentations. It's grassroots, it's no frills, but it's done well. We always get a lot of compliments. The
Yes.
vendors love coming. They said, "Oh, we wouldn't miss this. We love it. It's fun. It's low key, and we have a nice social and great opportunities for training and different presentations. And we encourage students for the different universities around here. Young people are a little shy about presenting. I said, this is the greatest audience to present. This is no pretension here. You don't need to worry about feeling uncomfortable. Everyone welcomes you and wants to know what you have to share. People love learning.
And we love, Panda Consulting loves SHRUG. And we've been up there for years and years and years. The only thing I would suggest, and because one of the things that COVID and the pandemic made us recognize, is that all too often we become very provincial. We look just locally. And instead, as you can tell from the attendance here, we have people all over the country that are interested in these things. And I challenge SHRUG, find a way that you can make it a hybrid so that you could be not just in person, but maybe get some of these sessions, virtually.
Yeah,
Throw Zoom up.
we talked about that and a way to monetize it. You know, we're not trying to, make money. We're a nonprofit, but we need to make it fair too for the people that show up that are
Right.
paying. How do we structure that for others? And the university grant, the facility does have an opportunity for recording, but there is a cost to it, and it's not cheap. But we have talked about it, and it's not off the table. I love the idea, Frank. That would be the perfect combo because you really broaden your reach. People would love to hear the content, be a part of it, but can't be there.
Yeah.
How do you fill that out? So Thank you for that challenge, and
Yeah.
we're going to work on it.
So before we move on to the final subject, which is the future of GIS, do you have anything else? I mean, I can tell you, you're one of those champions that we look to for who are the leaders out there, and who do you look to get examples of how you manage an organization and how you help your employees grow and do personal development. Do you have anything else to add to what we've talked about so far? Or
Can't think of
parting
anything.
words?
Yeah, just keep it real. Um, treat people like you want to be treated. Yeah, you've heard that before, right? It's kind of a golden rule, but do we always do it? Treat people with respect and give them space to take care of personal things, and they will give back to you 110%.
Yeah.
And and have a good time. Don't be stodgy. Don't, I'm not one of these old-fashioned management styles with the butts and seats. We have to be flexible with a hybrid situation, well, within the policies and rules that are available to us. But here's a good example. It used to be pre-COVID, you had the cable guy or the plumber or whatever AC guy coming over, and you had to blow your whole day. You had to take a day of annual leave to meet them.
Yep.
We don't need to do that anymore. Work from home that day.
Yep.
And we know that people are working from home. We know when they're working. We know they're doing a good job. We see the results. There's ways to monitor that without micromanaging. And yeah, that would be my parting words on that
Preach.
is
Preach.
just
Yeah.
don't micromanage and trust them. And when someone messes up, because we're human, we're going to mess up. You're going to have the courage to approach them and adjust and have them adjust. And I will tell you, 9 out of 10 times, they say thanks. I know I did. I went into
Yeah.
my boss every year. We do evaluations and said, please don't wait for the evaluations. Tell me anytime. I want to improve.
Yep.
I want to be better. And I can't do it unless I know. And I always tell my folks here, they're always like, I got to be honest with you, Scott, da da da. And I'll say, no, I want you to tell me how you feel, because I can't do anything if I don't notice it.
Yep. You have to, as a leader, you have to allow people to call you out. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you got to be humble about it. And, it's not about you, it's about your program. You got to think bigger than yourself. I'm
Yep.
not doing this for me. I love what I do, and I want to see this program. Oh, one more thing. Leave a legacy every day. Don't wait for the week before you retire to go, yeah, I'm
Yep.
going to leave a legacy. I remember talking to someone who was retiring. He was in IT years ago, and the measure of an individual and whether they've done a good job leaving a legacy is when they leave. Some people want to be they want to say, oh, they need me. They're going to call me every day. They're going to they can't live without me. No, you want the opposite. You want them to be able to carry on. It's a judge of whether or not you've trained them well enough or allowed them
Right.
to have the knowledge to carry on without you.
So I have one more question. I'll let you answer it and I'll step away for a minute. What do you think was the most instrumental in changing the collaborative nature of TLCGIS? I'm really envious of that most of the time. So why don't you answer that? I'll be back here in a minute. All right.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really big on is the team approach. Everybody has an individual, everyone's going to work individually most of the time. But on big problems, we work together on them. I pull people together almost, I would say, to my detriment sometimes. I have too many people involved. That's always something to work out. You want to make sure you got the right people in the room. But I'm very inclusive, and I want people to feel like they got skin in the game. And we make a decision, we make it together, and we all own it, and we deal with it. And most of the time, it's a good decision. It's part of the management training that I've been through. I won't go through the exercise because we're short on time, but the outcome of that exercise showed us that 9 out of 10 times that when you make decisions as a group, the outcome is is better than the individual decision. Now, we obviously make individual decisions, but the big stuff I like to do together as a group. I think that was different. That was the change for our organization.
Right.
We weren't always allowed to or weren't encouraged to participate. It's real participation. You have a real voice and it matters.
Great discussion.
And my
So
management allows me to do this stuff. That's a big deal too. I mean,
yeah, true.
I don't have a micromanager, and we have a great relationship with the IT department. We're within the IT department, but having that relationship has also allowed us to have a lot of flexibility in our and how we grow.
So we're coming up on the top of the hour here, and I think, the more I think about it, the more that whole discussion about AI, I'm going to ask you or your employee to come back and let's have a full hour on that, on machine learning and AI, and share the results of your project, if you don't mind.
That would be great, because we've got a few of them, and I think they're, pictures worth 1,000 words.
Great. All right. Anything else? Any other questions for Scott? Anything, anybody have anything? Because what we're going to do is we're going to stop the recording and then let everybody turn your mics and your webcams on, and maybe we could still have an open discussion. So I do have something. Ned is asking. Ned, you have a comment. Go ahead. No, we're going to let Ned talk.
I just wanted to, Scott sells a few of his skill sets short. He has the soft skill sets, like you mentioned, but don't want you to think that everybody at TLCGIS is the same personality and is the same person. We are all very different. But Scott has it within him to recognize our differences and to understand how we work and how we learn and how we share differently. So we have people that have to think everything through before they can do anything, and they don't work as well on high pressure timed things. And then we have other people that are charging forward all the time and have a solution in mind before they've even heard the problem, and finding the middle ground between all of that and making it all work well is no small task, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. And I just wanted to make sure that, that type of manager, that's why I think most managers should probably strive to be like, is to understand who you're working with, the personalities of the people you're working with, and how to get the most out of them.
Yeah, great point, Ned. In that, there's being a leader or being a good manager, and hopefully you're going to be both, means that you don't just apply one solution, but you recognize that everybody is different. You need overall goals, but you need to recognize that everyone is different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And everyone has a different communication style. We all know this is not a GIS thing, but some people respond to email. Some people prefer phone calls. Some people want you to walk in their office. Some people you text them, Teams messaging. It's very different. So you really should take the time to find out from everybody, learn how it's best to reach them. It's hard sometimes, but it's worth it, because you don't want your message landing dead.
Yeah. One more question.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's addressed to you, Scott, or whether it's Ned.
I'm gonna let Ned. I can answer, but I think I'll let Ned.
What programming
regarding
he wants to
languages?
So top on the list, Python, JavaScript, Arcade would be really the tops that I would think of. Can you think of any others, Frank, offhand?
I'm going to add one more. And it's not so much of a programming language as it is a platform, and that's FME, feature manipulation extracting. Safe Software is the company, Safe, SAFE.
And let me just say, even if it's not FME Workbench, it could be data's or ESRI's data interoperability, which is a subset of FME.
That's right.
Yeah,
Good
either
point.
one.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree.
And we
I
made
agree.
massive use of it for automation,
Yeah.
scripting.
One more. Now the questions are coming out. One more. Mark says, do you switch tasks around in your group so people don't get stuck doing one thing, such as E911 mapping all the time? Do you cross-train?
That's a really good question. I think it's important to do it. I probably should do it more. We don't want we do not want anyone getting burned out. We know
Yeah.
that, like an example of the emergency management piece, not every personality is suited to be in a high pressure cooker environment in
Right.
an emergency operations center. I have to recognize that. We need people that are cool under pressure and that can very quickly move on things.
Right.
And so, but knowing that, we can position people in a way, we can have a back office support that are not there in the screaming, yelling. No, exaggerating a little, but so we can have them operational, but just indirectly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
And
good to do that, just like they do in the military. They move people
Yeah.
around in different roles and responsibilities, and it's a great way to learn. Y- you know, I'm glad you asked that question. I'll probably be more cognizant of it. But yeah, challenging people with skills. The only challenge that I face with that is sometimes people think that that's their new job now. And
Yeah.
that's not always the case. So you got to spread stuff out. I can't have all 12 people building apps. I just can't, you can't give all 12 people admin access, admin rights to things. There's
Yeah.
reason for certain structure to exist. But yeah, moving things around a little bit and having people train in areas that they didn't before, I think keeps things fresh.
So just one final comment on my side. That was one of the strengths when I was working at the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, is that they took their employees and they cross-trained them. And I literally was 6 months in a title office and 6 months in a planning office and 6 months in a marketing and sales office, so that when it wound up growing and growing a much fuller employee who understood everything about that organization. And there's such strength in that. I agree. We have to cross-train one another. And yeah, I agree. There's
Good
another
point.
question about chat.
Just so that
Yep.
understand that it's going to cause issues further down the road. Right.
Yep.
Because it's wrong.
Yep. So we also have a question about chat GPT, but we're going to keep that until the next session. All right. I'm going to turn off the recording. Thank you so much. Really, thank you for sharing all your knowledge and answering all the questions. And thank you.
I enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Thanks for attending, and we hope you enjoyed this workshop. If you have questions, would like some more details about anything we discussed during this workshop, or if you or anyone at your organization would like information about training, support, or ways in which we can help you with your GIS needs, please contact me at frank@pandaconsulting.com or call me at 561-691-3277, and we can discuss how we can help you with your needs.